Warning, if you have a fear of extreme melodramatic scenarios, intense jealousy, bad endings, and this bastard of a character, this review may not be for you. Your discretion is advised. Now, I love romances. They're cute, adorable, and wholesome. But you see, I also like them complicated, messy, and ugly. Why? Because it adds that extra spiciness to it, that extra craziness kick to fuel even more chaos, drama, and raw emotional breakdown. And there's nothing that fulfills that more than a good old classic love triangle drama, one that ends in death. So let's take a look at one of anime/visual novel's most infamous romance series, one quite memorable for its bad endings. Hi, my name is August, and let's take a look at School Days. School Days' premise is as fundamental as you can get with the genre, but right off the bat it falls into big yikes territory by the gigantic red flag it sets off. We follow our average guy, Makoto Itou, as he spots the girl he likes on his train commute. He then proceeds to take a secret picture of her and then saves it as his phone wallpaper. Now, I'm not an expert in love here, but I don't think this is the optimal move here. Being romantically incapable, his female classmate Sekai helps him get together with Kotonoha, the girl that he's been crushing on. After the two get together, Makoto asks her how he can repay her, to which then Sekai kisses him with tears in her eyes before boarding her train home. You see where this is headed? Destination nowhere fun. If you thought this was going to be predictable, then good luck, because the 22 different endings would beg to differ. Throughout School Days, you are given lots of decisions that will alter the course of the story. These timed decisions will allow you to choose any of the following options, or not at all. Depending on the action you take, the bar at the top will move towards either Kotonoha or Sekai. While the attraction bar does matter to some extent, picking the increasingly wrong decisions will ultimately end up in a bad ending. Who would have thought? Pray you're not like me and barely managed to avoid one unintentionally. Thankfully, I was able to steer this boat ride back manually because this twat ends up doing extremely dumb shit regardless. Makoto Itou is a character, and I'm saying this both referring to his uninteresting personality and his very unsavory actions. Hope you have a good patience tolerance, because watching this man piss about his relationships is immensely frustrating. It boggles my mind why anyone would consider this man a breedable candidate. The idea of Makoto's character is that he's romantically indecisive. The problem is that the man is a complete pushover. Makoto wavers between the two girls with every appearance. When Sekai appears, he claims to like her, but the moment Kotonoha appears being pitiful, he takes her side in the only way he knows how, leading from his bottom half rather than his top half, and vice versa. The man gravitates towards titty and vagina like a moth to a flame, uncontrollable and rash selfish urges included. The only time some sense is smacked into him is due to the side characters, and even then they don't know jack shit about what's actually going on in the first place. Makoto knows what he's doing is wrong, but God forbid he actually does something about it. It's never of his own volition. There's a very clear problem when I have to actively choose the stop having sex option in the QuickTime event. Common sense is also just not on the table either, because you know, maybe you should tell your girlfriend that you like someone else. But no, that would be the smart thing to do. Which leads into my next point, where if you can't beat them, join them. Because sometimes I get the idea that the quote-unquote right way to enjoy School Days is to deliberately be a womanizing deviant scumbag. Now, you're totally in your right to enjoy School Days however you like, but personally, there's some sadistic enjoyment in just seeing how bad it can get. To see the consequences of a romantically unfaithful, sex-crazed beta cuck. There's a desire to see those explosive emotional outbursts out of pure entertainment, because watching them normally is uninteresting to begin with. Reading through School Days is very dull. It's not that engaging. School Days is unique in how it's less like a visual novel and more like an anime, but I felt like I was watching a visual novel anyway. The storyboard and composition is very plain, composed of mostly expressionless faces and still objects. Add in the drab color palette and slow-paced conversations, and you have a production that's not captivating visually, which just goes to show how entirely shocking it is when the quality suddenly increases during its bad endings. There's more fluidity in these scenes alone than the entire visual novel, minus the overly long looping animation H scenes. There's a reason why the bad endings are infamous, because in a sea of dull conversations and watching our bastard of a main character pushing the girls to their limits is what wakes people up. That and the oh so memorable ending song. Now, going to what I said before, there are 22 possible endings in School Days. You have 7 Kotonoha endings, 5 Sekai endings, 4 sub-heroine endings, 2 harem endings, and last but not least, the 4 infamous bad endings. There is a flowchart within the game, but it's mostly a visual representation of what you've already read. I've linked an actual guide for a full breakdown of the chart and the steps needed to reach those endings in the description down below. In conclusion, reading School Days is a test of your patience when it comes to soap dramas and this dumbass. The amount of frustration from Makoto, the suspension of disbelief from the wild emotional changes, and the lack of human decency and common sense is a gauntlet of pain. Despite all of this, it does well for what a soap romance drama should be, messy and complicated as possible to maximize emotional pull. And in a way, it capitalizes that in both its good and bad endings, through various different ways. The bad endings are the consequences of his heartless actions, but the good endings are him knowing he fucked up and trying to redeem himself. It all just depends on the reader's choices. But from a viewing perspective, it's very dull. You're going to have to get used to the slower paced conversations and plain visual style. It's aged quite a bit from when it was first released in 2005. That said, I'm sorry if you watched the anime adaptation of School Days, because it's not nearly as fun pushing these problematic relationships off a building without the choices. Or save them if you so wish, you kind, brave soul. Besides, if you want a better version of this, I actually highly recommend White Album 2, because while it's of the same vein, I think it's the most underrated masterpieces in drama romances to date. Yeah, this video is actually just a recommendation for White Album 2. Anyway, School Days gets a 3 out of 5 from me. And as always, subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more. Check back every week for new content. You can follow me on Twitter at TheAugustTale if you are interested.